You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast. In today's episode, we've titled it The One Where We Talk About Your Metrics.
So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and with 17 years online, I've built my business to over $12 million in sales per year. And this is the first non-business business podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of spirituality, energy, and mindset to grow your business beyond your wildest dreams, all from the inside out. This is the Mind Your Business podcast. What's up, everyone? I'm James Wedmore.
And I'm Jenny Finley.
Wait, Jenny?
Jenny.
You're here. You're back.
I'm back.
Oh, my goodness, guys. It has been, my friends, it has been such a long time, has it not?
Indeed.
Did you even get an episode out with me in 2025? Is this your first episode of the year?
I think we did one at the beginning of the year.
What day is it? Listen, we're going to get into a really important episode today all about your metrics. Such an important episode and more, but so many developments. First and foremost, Jenny is back on the show. You went through some time, so you had to go through some stuff, and you're back. And everyone was like just about boycotting the show. They were like,
"No, we had amazing guests on.
We want Jenny."
I was so bummed that I didn't get to interview our amazing
you
lineup
also,
of guests.
You missed the mastermind retreat.
I know.
You missed these amazing guests we've had on, like Dr. Wood. We had Tracy Goodwin on the show. We had some amazing friends on. It was a really good time. So you were sorely missed, and we're so happy to have you back. And
for those who don't know, I did not move to Timbuktu. I had a family emergency.
Yeah.
My mom had a emergency open heart surgery, and miraculously was saved by the incredible doctors. I mean, so many miracles. We could do a whole episode discussing the miraculous recovery of my mom.
It's
but
incredible.
I was in Palm Springs for a whole month caring for her. And then we came right back into launch prep.
Yep. Yeah, it's been it was intense. I was taking care of the dogs, all three of those little rascals.
I know.
For
You're
a while.
A complete angel for taking care of all three of them.
And holding down the forts, and we had, so our main project manager was on maternity leave. The head of my growth team, Jenny, was gone. That was what, February?
I just yawned because it was so intense. It was like my brain went oxygen.
Yeah. But it's obviously great to have you back, and our listeners are very happy to have you back. And I've felt very inspired to have this episode. It's, I think, a long time coming. I've shared iterations and versions of this over the years, and it's obviously a huge distinction and conversation that we have in our once a year epic mega live masterclass, The Rise of the Digital CEO, which is coming up this May 29th. Make sure to mark your calendars. This is an experience. It's a huge, it's not like a webinar. It's not like a PowerPoint presentation. This is an experience. It's an event, and you can experience this event at home or wherever you would have your tablet, phone, or laptop available. And it's goes over an entire week. It's 3 parts over an entire week, and it's the entire deep dive into how we run this business. And I think it's so exciting. I have so many things I want to share, and so many things I want to dive into this episode that are all correlated. But we have these clients right now, and we just wrapped quarter 1, 2025, in a time that is a bumpy roller coaster. Now, if you guys have been longtime listeners, I've been saying these things would happen, that there'll be more challenges economically and in the atmosphere in the world, and the frequency of transformation and awakening and what's happening on the planet. It's a really turbulent and challenging time for a lot of people. And coinciding with that is so much unbelievably inspiring, awesome growth from so many people, businesses and opportunities galore. In quarter 1, we have this trend of all these clients that are like the return alumni that have been just at it. And they all shared this very common theme, which is their quarter 1s of this year was like double last year.
Yeah.
Like they doubled their growth of quarter one.
Yeah.
Or they've hit like their first 6-figure quarter. And it's so freaking awesome. Now, I share all that because not one of them would sit there and say, I don't really look at my numbers. Numbers don't really matter. I am hearing, and I'm going to be a jerk for a moment, and I'm sorry. It's to protect you. There's so much, like on an unprecedented level, and I understand it. People are fighting for your attention and everything, and I'm just grateful that you take the time to listen to us here on the show. But there's so much bad advice, so much, and it's not. I don't think it's not like people are intentionally like I'm going to get bad advice. It's just a lot of like naivete, hubris, Dunning-Kruger effect, massive Dunning-Kruger effect, an ignorance of I think I know stuff, so I'm going to share it. There is so much advice of like, you don't need to look at numbers. You don't need a strategy. You don't need strategy. You just need to align. Guys, do you realize even that, saying that is a strategy? And there are some, if you're going to be, and I'm, we're a very woo spiritual, and people are always like, oh, bring the Wedmore woo. So I bring that. And if you are going to play business while being a spiritual being, having a physical 3D material experience, you need to play by the rules of business if you want to win it. You need to understand these. And if you've been listening, whether it's one episode or 700, the name of the game is always both. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people try to choose a side, like it's 3D or 5D. It's metrics or manifest. And it's like, why are we choosing? Mm-hmm. Why the heck would you only have half? Why would you make your life an A or B conversation when I'm inviting you to make it C, which is all of the above? And knowing your numbers, and more people are coming around to it, like how important it is. But every single one of our alumni that had the best quarter yet, they have the same common theme that they shared, which is, I did the same thing I did last year or the last quarter. I did my debriefs. I interpreted the data. I improved what worked, and I deleted what didn't. That's business right there. It's so simple. It's so simple. And I think a lot of people are doing this thing where they're like, I just feel like a failure. It felt like a failure. I felt like it felt awful. It felt like it tanked. And they're using their emotions or an emotional state or an experience that they're having, which is real and valid, to experience something that they are new at and don't know a lot about. And then they didn't realize that the emotion that they're experiencing was actually the byproduct of a thought that they were thinking that came from their, reactive, more ego-based negative thinking that's trying to keep you safe or stuck. Like you had these expectations or this attachment to the first time, the first launch should have been this and it wasn't. So you say it's a failure.
Or they generalize, like launches are rarely a failure in every arena. And when you know your numbers or you know where to look for the data, you can start to celebrate where you've won and where you fell short versus just blanket statement calling all of it a failure.
Thing.
So for example, if you were like, okay, I'm going to look at my my earnings per lead, my traffic, and then my conversion on a webinar. And you're like, okay, I've got really good traffic this time, but they didn't convert. And then you're looking even closer at like, where didn't they convert? Did they drop off halfway through the webinar? Did they even see the pitch? Did they hear the pitch, but then I didn't do a follow-up? There's so many things that's like, what fell short? Was it the, like for example, someone said something about a launch that was only an email campaign not doing well. And then immediately I'm like, well, what were your open and click rates? And they didn't know. Yeah. And I was like, that's fascinating to me because you could be saying that a launch failed if you're only doing emails, but you didn't even see if people opened the email. That's a subject line problem.
Yes.
That's not a copy problem.
And that's what we're going to get into. And here's an example of this is that if you were doing like a webinar is like a presentation, right? You're live and you've got the energy. Mm-hmm. And one of the most common experiences people have is feeling great on the way. I did my best. I felt amazing. And that's great. That's very important.
Yes.
And then seeing no sales. And a very interesting thing that people do not draw this connection or correlation is how well you performed is not directly correlated to sales.
Right.
You can have and people go, this was amazing. You're rocking it. You're crushing it.
You changed my life.
Mind-blowing emoji. And knowledge bombs. And no sales. Bye. See ya. So understanding that although those things can be valid, they don't necessarily correlate to sales.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing I want you to take away from this as we dive into, we're going to dive into the math and the nitty-gritty of numbers. And don't worry, I got you. Uncle James is going to keep it as simple as possible for you. Because if we keep it simple, you're going to use it. If it's complicated, you'll find a reason not to do it. And you'll bring up the stories that your math teacher in 4th grade told you that you're no good at math because you got a B- on your test that you've now lived into for the rest of your life, when you have to realize that to be successful in business, we must know numbers, and you must know your numbers. And math and numbers, the data does not lie. Data doesn't lie. And the numbers is a language. That's all it is. It's a language, and it's trying to tell you something all day, every day. And some things can get lost in translation. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of things are clear as day. Just like you said, the open rates are low. So how would you know they're low? Because a number told you that. They're 5%. Well, we're going to talk about guidelines of what they should be, right? Because everything is relative. And then you'll be able to go, oh, it's low. That means I had a bad subject line.
Yeah, and I think some people shy away from knowing their numbers because they're afraid that they're going to have to confront that their launch didn't do well. And I actually see it more often than not. It's the opposite. It's when you really start understanding and looking at the numbers, you start to go, oh my gosh, I am succeeding in this area.
It is.
I am
you are
good
so
in this
right.
area.
That is, I have had people come out of 6 months of launch shame, where they told me I did it, it tanked, I hid from the world, and I go, well, show me your numbers. And they were having me such a hard time, like they were having such a hard time showing the numbers. And I go, you actually converted higher than average across the board.
Right.
So here's why they had launch shame. And this is where we're going to start. And I'm going to propose it. Jenny knows the answer to this question, but $100,000 launch, is that a good launch or a bad launch? Like, how would you rate that as a launch?
It just depends on, I have a lot more follow-up questions.
Right, because you know this already.
Yeah.
People say, that's a great launch. How can you answer that? You don't have any data.
Right.
What if it cost you $110,000 to make that $100,000? What if you had 1 million people in that launch? Imagine you do a webinar with 1 million attendees and you only make $100,000. That is the worst launch in the history of launches. And so the first
unless your product was $1.
Well, even that is actually really bad. Like, that's still, if it's really
25 cents.
No, if it was $1, you should have like a 75% conversion rate. At $1, everyone's got $1. So this is the first place we're going to start, is that you cannot, if you're going to look at, the same people, ironically, and I'm just going to rub some people's nose in this, that don't want to look at their numbers are looking at a number. And the number you're looking at is the dollars. How much money do you, that anyone who says, I don't look at my numbers, I'm not measuring my numbers, I'm not good with my numbers.
What I was thinking.
They are looking at, you are looking at a number. You're looking at the dollars or the sales that are coming in and you're not happy with it. You're just looking at the wrong number. And that is the last, hear me, that is the last number I want you to look at. And here's why. We, as the digital CEO, are building a machine. You are not here to make money. That is a job. You are here to make a machine, and that machine makes money. And we must create a machine that performs well. So until we are looking at performance metrics, it really doesn't matter any other number, because $100,000 off of 1 million attendee webinar is the worst performing machine in the history of sales machines. So stop looking at the money for a second and start looking at the performance metrics. So we're going to address this entire conversation. Very simple, and you guys should be taking notes on this. You should be writing this all down. From 2 distinctions, micro and macro. We're going to look at it from a micro level in your business and a macro. So we're going to start micro and then macro. So we learned that term. Micro is like on an individual level, and then macro is like the entire picture, like the whole snapshot. So our business is going to be made up, especially if we're teaching, if we're selling digital products, from individual projects, promotions, funnels, or launches. We are going to use one word to encapsulate all of those. That's what we use in our community called a sales machine. So a sales machine consists of something going in and something coming out. So you have to build the machine, and then once you've built it, so a lot of people don't have a sales machine, which is why they don't have sales. A lot of people don't have something for sale or a sales machine, which is why they don't have sales. So you need two things. First, you need something for sale, which is an offer. We can talk about this at another time. In fact, we've got my free 3-day training course coming up in like a week. When is the date for that? Your first digital product?
April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th.
There we go. April 22nd, we're kicking off a free 3-day workshop for anyone that wants to learn how to create your first digital product. It's literally called Your First Digital Product for a reason, because I'm going to walk you through that. So you need something for sale. Then we need a sales machine. This could be a webinar, a funnel, a challenge, a live launch, an automated launch, even email campaigns. We teach and deliver the execution guides and the step-by-step processes for 14 different sales machines of every size, every different type you can think of inside Business by Design. So it's like pick one and go, right? So once we have the offer in the sales machine, we're rocking and rolling. So it's something comes in, something goes out. Well, what comes in? People, leads, registrants. So let's say we're doing a webinar. That's the most specific one I want to use. On a micro level, we're going to look at a sales machine that is a webinar. You're going to have people come into that, which are called registrants. And then what do we want to have come out? Those are sales. So there's two metrics, and these are the only two metrics we need to really look at to determine the performance of the machine, of the webinar machine. Conversion rate and EPL. Now, conversion rate is the number of units, like if I had 5 customers or 5 sales, divided by the number of registrants. So if I had 100 people register and 5 bought, that's 5%. If you can get, it depends on the price point, it depends on the industry. There's like a range, 3% for like higher ticket stuff, like we're talking 1,000 or above, and 5 to 10% on more lower ticket stuff. Now, that's the guideline. You might be sitting here listening to this going, I'm doing 20%, and you are amazing, okay? And you should be proud of yourself, and you should give yourself an A+, and you should print that out, put it on the fridge, because you're rocking and rolling. But there's a lot of people that are doing lower than that, and they don't even see that they're doing that, right? So that's conversion rate. Number of sales or units divided by number of total registrants. The other one, and this is like the total magic one, is EPL. And if you've been a part of my community for a long time, you've heard me talk about this holy grail metric, earnings per lead. Now, the equation for EPL is in the name. Earnings is total sales. So if you made $1,000, and I'm not, but maybe we could pull up the calculator. Yeah, I'll pull up the I have my phone here. Okay, so the earnings, let's say you make $10,000, okay? Per is divided by leads, EPL, earnings per leads. So let's say you had 500 leads. So I go $10,000 divided by 500. And that gives us a number of 20. Now, this is very important. We're going to break this down for you. The number 20 means if I go to you and I go, and if you're in BBD, you know I ask you these questions. What was your EPL? And you better be able to answer that for me, right? Because you got to know thy numbers. And the number is 20. So my EPL is $20. What does that mean? What that means is every lead is worth $20 to me. That's number one. Number two, the higher the EPL, the better the launch performed. So my goal is, let's run that again and see if we can get it up. And we can even talk in other episodes. This is a lot what BBD is how do you increase those metrics? What are the levers that will increase that? See, a lot of people think growth is one-dimensional. They go, I just need to get more people in my webinar. Well, yes, you do. But if you had a $20 EPL and you doubled the size of your webinar, imagine what happens when you double your EPL. This is where hockey stick happens. This is where quantum results. When I watch, whether it's our clients or anyone on the internet explode, it's because they pulled multiple levers to create that growth. And it all comes back down to numbers, not just how we feel. which is great and important, but also the metrics that we measure that will give us information to inform data-driven decision-making of what levers we can pull. So the third thing EPL does is if it tells us what a lead is worth, it begins to inform what we're willing to spend to buy a lead, right? So if I then go, my EPL is $20, the question to you, my audience, is how much would you be willing to spend to buy a lead? So if every time a lead comes into your funnel, it's $20 in your bank account, how much would you spend? Now, the correct answer could be technically up to $20. But we don't really want it to be, right? Like you don't want to spend $20. You can. There's something called an SLO or a self-liquidating offer. We're not going to talk about that here. But that means there must be other offers in place where the money is made on more of a back-end process. And we're going to talk about LTV in a bit. But just in a micro level of your launch, you want your launch to be profitable. So I would say like a third or a fourth, right? So that would be like $5 to $8. I would pay $5 to $8 all day for a $20 lead. And that is how we scale. So this is so important too, because people say, I'm afraid of Facebook ads. I'm afraid of spending all that money. And I say, we are always afraid of what we don't know. And turning away from numbers means we don't know our numbers. And if we don't know our numbers, of course, you're going to be afraid to spend Facebook ads because people go, OMG, do I have to spend $1,000 a day? Wait, do I have to spend $1,000 a day? Do you know my biggest regret after any launch or promotion every single time for the past 10 years has been, I wish I spent more. But that's because I'm not looking. I've had, the little like Facebook notifications that come up, bring, bring, and it'll say $27,000 for a day. And if I only look at that number, that makes your stomach churn a bit. $27,000 a day, especially when it's like 5 days in a row of that. You're like, and then I go in or I ask the amazing one and only Facebook Ads by Design, Liz Melville, our Facebook ads coach and manager, what's our average cost per lead? She's like $7. I'm like, let it ride, right? Let's spend more. Why aren't we spending more, right? And in fact, this morning she asked us, what's your ad spend? And I said, well, what's our limit? What's our daily limit? Let's just spend that. And then, of course, you came back and said $100,000 a day. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's not spend $100,000 a day, but get these going. And if the leads are cheap, I want to raise that as quickly as we can, right? So I'm not spending $26,000 a day. I'm buying $7 leads over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm here to tell you, and I said this at a couple of events that I've been speaking at, I was just at a mastermind where the average annual revenue in the room was like $33 million.
Wow.
So we lowered the average in that room. We screwed up the average, okay? And I'm going to tell you, in a whole day of networking and masterminding, I'm just going to like totally dispel any myths and secret mystique surrounding a room of people that are in, full of 8, and there was like a 9-figure. There's a 300 million. Is that 9-figure? Whatever that is. There's a lot, right? That's just insane. 300 million, right? Okay, here's the difference. Here's what they're doing that we are not, all of us, because I'm not at 33 million. They're just spending more. They're just buying more leads. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all it is. They're buying more leads and they're selling more often. So they're just doing what you're doing at a higher rate, at a bigger scale. And it's very dangerous, reckless, and darn near impossible to do that without knowing your numbers. And that's why this is so important.
I do want to say, though, even if you don't have ads, like EPL is not only beneficial for ad spend.
Correct.
It applies even if you are not running ads. So if you're listening to this going, wait, this doesn't apply to me because I only have organic traffic, your earning per lead still matters. It's just also a way to determine how much you're going to spend on ads.
Bingo. Yeah, it really is. If you come to me and you give me your debrief and I say, what's your EPL? I already know so much of how well your launch did with that one metric. Mm-hmm. And the name of the game then is, can I increase it? Now, the question on everyone's mind now, of course, is, well, what's a good EPL? What should it be? And the answer is as high as possible, always. And I will say, if you can get it, I teach a philosophy or 4 phases inside the BBD philosophy. It's like our operating system. And that you graduate to the 4th phase, which is max impact. This is where the scaling really happens, when you can get your EPL over $25 per lead. I mean, we had a student put a debrief in there right now that's selling a $2,000 offer. She knows who she is if she's listening to this episode. And her EPL was like $350.
Wow.
For a $2,000 offer. Now, her model is she's using sales calls. So she's like crushing it. And I was just like, holy moly, right? But her lead cost was really high. And I was like, we need to get that down. But still, like, it was like $100 lead cost, but $350. I'm like, there's profit there. But what if you got your lead cost down to 10 and kept that EPL there? You are like crushing it, right? So I say for people over 25, you're rocking and rolling. We've had ours anywhere for Business by Design, $100 to $140 something. But even when I first started out, it was about 45 to 50 for a while. I went when it was like, $2,000 to $3,000 product. Now, then the next question is, well, what if I'm doing a membership? So the caveat with the membership is that you're paying monthly, right? And each person's going to be there at different times. So there's multiple ways in which you can calculate it. What matters is that you calculate it the same way every single time in a way that does 2 things. Number 1, measures progress in your launch performance. And number 2, gives you faith and confidence of how much you can spend to get leads. So I have people saying, it's $5 a month. My EPL is $5 a month. Some people go, the average person stays 3 months, and it was, my number I got was 5, so 5 times 3 for 3 months, it's a $15 EPL. It doesn't matter how you calculate it, as long as you calculate it the same way every single time, because it's a relative number. You're measuring the relative difference in growth or increase or decrease launch after launch. Because on a micro level, when we run our sales system, the name of the game is to improve it. Not just make more money with it, but to improve it. So increase the EPL. So you're going to implement something that we'll talk about at another time, where you're going to make changes. And I have this very simple distinction, and I love teaching simple distinctions. Changes and enhancements. And a change means if I change something in my launch or promotion, my sales system, it'll either go up, go down, or stay the same. If I enhance something, it's either going to go up or stay the same. So you want to minimize changes and maximize enhancements. So sometimes we make a change and then it goes down, and you can see it in the EPL. Like you say, I'm going to raise the price. People think raising the price means it'll raise the EPL. There is actually a thing, my friends, and I don't know whether it's more of your energy, the marketplace, and my guess is it's a combination of both, but there is a phenomenon called the pricing sweet spot, where you can, whether it's by your own demise or the market's threshold or external factors, price yourself out of a sweet spot, which means conversions start to go down, right? You don't just keep raising prices and you have the same conversion rate. If you took your $1,000 product and sold it for $20,000 tomorrow, it would not get you the same amount of customers. That's kind of logical. If you sold it the same way with no changes, it wouldn't, right? So that would be a change, and that might lower EPL. So I minimize those changes, but then I measure, I made this change, my EPL went down. That's massive data points right there, right? Okay, so the micro level, we have 2 metrics. That's it. That's all I've been sharing. There's nothing else to this. Yes, we can go deeper, but there comes a point in time, my friends, where it's like law of diminishing returns on our metrics, where it's like you get lost in the data. EPL, conversion rate. Those 2 metrics is all you need. Now, for each, and I'm not going to go into these in this episode for the risk of overwhelming and confusing anybody, but for each launch strategy, there are a set of metrics that you should be paying attention to. Like for a webinar, another one you should pay attention to is attendance rate. You increase that attendance rate, you're going to increase your EPL. Think about it. If no one shows up to the webinar, you're not going to make any sales. If everyone shows up to the webinar, well, that'd be pretty awesome if you can get 100% attendance rate. Let me know when that happens. That's going to help your EPL. So those are sub metrics. within that system. And we could geek out on those, but those are system dependent. Okay. So that's what I wanted to say about the macro. Jenny, anything you want to add or any questions you have for me on the micro metrics?
Well, I'm wondering if you want to unpack just a little bit
Sure.
enhancement versus change, because you didn't say
what an
that
enhancement is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I gave you the definition of what each one would be categorized as.
Right.
So,
but give a specific.
But now
example.
I'll give specifics. So, a change could be something like I just changed the offer.
So something is different than before.
Yeah,
truly different.
I took something away. I'm no longer doing group coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I changed the price.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's in the word. I used
to do a webinar launch, and now I'm doing a live launch.
I changed the process. That could, yes, absolutely. I used to do a challenge. We've seen people say I did a challenge and then I did a webinar and it went down or it went up.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Okay.
but that's a change.
But yes, absolutely. Yeah. An enhancement is something that you improve. Like, for example,
that you've done before, that you are enhancing.
Yeah, exactly.
You've done it before. So that's the important part.
So I did my webinar and it does this result. It's had a $30 EPL and it had 3 testimonials in it. I just added 5 more.
Right. That's a great example.
No one's going to say, you know what? I was going to buy, but there's just too many testimonials. You've just helped too many people at this point. I'm out of here, right? I want something that hasn't been proven. Okay.
Yeah. Or you add a VIP offer to your launch. That's an enhancement.
That's an enhancement. Mm-hmm. Adding, yes, there's a lot of diminishing returns, but like adding a bonus, adding more value to the offer is enhancing the offer. Improvements to the sales page. I'm going to improve the branding, the look and the feel, things like that.
I'm new ads. That's an enhancement.
Exactly. A runway item. That's an enhancement.
Yeah. Optimizing your copy for SEO.
More reminder emails. These are enhancements.
Yes.
And we want to double down on enhancements and minimize change. In fact, I say you shouldn't do more than 1 change per launch. And once you got a solid EPL, stop changing it. If it ain't broke, why fix it? And this is where I just did a video on this, and hopefully it resonated with a lot of people, is that people are too entrepreneurial in this business. And I understand that it's exciting to call ourselves an entrepreneur, and it's fun, and there's this newness, but there is something so juicy, something so waiting for you on the when the entrepreneur within you dies off a little bit. And I know that sounds so negative, but it's really not. Because everything you want is not from, like, you know what I mean? Like the money, the freedom, the blah, 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 all that stuff that everyone's so hungry for. I get it. You deserve it. It doesn't come from entrepreneurship. It comes from developing a business system. Because entrepreneurs are, again, you could call this semantics, but I do not, because I think words are more important than anything. But what an entrepreneur is a innovator, creator, jump starter. And that is someone who is stuck in first gear. And to stick with that car metaphor, when does a car work the most? When the RPM is the highest. When is the RPM the highest? The lower the gear. So the most work is in the lowest gears. And that's where the traditional entrepreneur loves to be. So I hope this metaphor, really makes sense for you, because when you click into the higher gears, you get to continue working less and experience more money, more freedom, more like relaxed state. But you can't do that if you're always reinventing the wheel, always starting over, always stuck in first gear creation mode. And so oftentimes I just see people waiting for it to hit, waiting for the breakthrough launch, but every time is there's this fallacy that something can only be successful if you hit it out of the gate the first time, knock it out of the park for the first time you're up to plate. And it's like, no. It's the opposite. It's do it 20 times, and like time 21 is when it explodes. And this is why I mentioned our students, because that's what they figured out. And they do the consistent webinar, consistent sales system over and over. Okay, look at the number. Okay, improve this. Okay, change this. Okay, update that, add that, change that. Boom, 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 boom. And it's like webinar 6, 7, 8, boom, it starts working. 9, 10, 13, let's go. And most people aren't willing to do that. They're like, I did it once. It didn't give me $1 million. I quit, and they leave.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go, right? So if you're willing to look at the numbers, the numbers are the clues pointing the finger on what to do next to give you the improvement and the next improvement and the next improvement. You got to go through that process. People also just label it failure or tanked. And that is a label that hides the numbers. And if you can't see the numbers, you won't be able to see what it's telling you. So that's the micro level. Okay. And I want you to just stick with that. Each sales system, you can go deeper, but I want you to know those two levels, those two numbers at that level. Now we're going to go macro. Macro gets to be really fun. Macro is looking at the business as a whole. Okay. So at the macro level, yes, we should be looking at sales and profit. Okay. But actually, less than sales and profit, we should actually be looking at rate of growth in sales. You know what I mean? I don't have too many opinions about a business that just says, we did 100K last year, right? So first of all, it's like, yeah, what's the profit, right? That's nice to know. And the profit per industry and also like input and output. Like it's one thing to have like, oh, it's only like a 25% profit, but it was like so automated, so hands off. It's full of assets. Like we look at the Airbnb business, it's full of assets. The properties appreciate themselves and it's 100% hands off, right? There's a lot of other bennies to that one. So you go, well, the year before it was only 10,000. Whoa, hold up. Wait a second. You just 10x the business in year 2? Like this is your second year. You know what I mean? So rate of growth, I believe, matters. Okay. But there's another, and this is like a sales and marketing metric, but at a macro level. And that is LTV. And I don't think people are looking to LTV enough. I actually don't really hear anybody talking about it in most circles. And I think it is actually one of the most important metrics. LTV is lifetime customer value. So EPL is what a lead is worth to you in one launch. LTV is what a customer is to you over their entire life cycle with you. Jen, I'm going to prompt you. Can you think of any brand that you have been an obsessive or loyal consumer of for some amount of time, where you run out of something and you're like, gotta get it again, and it's gotta be this brand? Do you have any examples that are coming, whether it's a pet product, a beauty product?
I mean, I have a lot, but
I know. Just give me
the
one,
obvious one is Lululemon, and we absolutely looked at lifetime customer value.
Totally. Yeah, good. Yeah, because she used to work at Lululemon, right? So let's, moving aside that she was also an employee, which definitely increases a sense of loyalty, you would buy a product, you would love it, you'd wear it, and then you go, oh my gosh, it's a new season, they've got a new line of stuff, I got to get this. They got the 2025 jackets or pants or whatever. And then they're going, well, we don't just do yoga pants anymore, we do shoes. We do backpacks.
We do athleisure. I'm wearing it right now.
Yeah, and you go, oh my goodness. So I'm not just getting the updates of every year and to stay in line with fashion. They're now going horizontally, and you're like, let's get the shoes, let's get the fanny pack, let's get all the other things that they sell as well. And you can see the difference versus like, I just bought one thing once 10 years ago and I still wear it here and there, versus like I buy there constantly, and what that does for you as a business owner to look at the fact that once you have a buyer, you have an opportunity to have someone who buys from you again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you're saying that, one of the things I'm reflecting on, because I was with that company for so long, over almost, it was 15 years, so almost 2 decades, and watching the brand strategize and evolve to the market based on where were we limited in like how much people would buy or sell. Like if people, just to give an example, which relates to like digital product suites, at the Lululemon in 2009, on every single label of the clothing, it would have a category of what you were meant to wear that garment for. So like we had it would say run swiftly. And we called it the Run Swiftly, and that's the name of the shirt. And then at some point around like 2014, they started removing the word run from it, and suddenly all the yogis are buying the Swiftly top, which was designed for runners, but when you put the word run in front of the tag, you niche it down to where this is the run section. Yeah. And so what they did was we're in like the digital product suite, there's like, that's what you're talking about, is like there's a sweet spot to pricing. There's also a sweet spot to niching, which is like, do you want to niche yourself out of being having more people in your stuff, and then watching the brand evolve over time to where it's like, how can a brand grow so that that's the one-stop shop?
Right.
Yeah.
So LTV, the higher your LTV, the safer your business. I'm going to say that. The more insulated, protected, safer, stronger your business. Mm-hmm. It's the name of the game. When you know your LTV, you also know how much you can spend to acquire a customer. So here's a pop quiz for audience. If you sell one product for $9.97, what's your LTV? Do you know the answer?
$9.97?
Yeah, that's it, right? So you have one offer. That's all you sell. Mm-hmm. Your lifetime customer value is $9.97. That's all it could be.
Right.
Right. So what we see is a wonderful phenomenon. It happened to me, where when at the right phase, I'm not saying come out with a bunch of products at once. You got one thing at a time. Okay. One bridge at a time. But you got to look and start thinking beyond the one thing. And if you do that, you really create a business. It's like, this is a business now, and that's good. We're thinking smart. And that's why this isn't an important metric at the macro level. What we see is that the moment people create what is either called the back end offer or the secondary offer in the business, they 2 to 3x entire revenue in the company. Mm. Their business will double to triple just like that. Mm-hmm. And we're not saying because they did another launch and they increased their ad spend. It was like, you had all those people join that $9.97 program. Then you're like, hey, for people that want to go further and work closer with me, we've got this thing for $5K or $10K. Boom. Mm-hmm. Doubles to triples the business overnight. And the LTV goes up massively. There's a few ways to calculate LTV, and it can be tricky. Here's one equation. Average order value, which is like the average amount people spend at checkout for the first product, times the purchase frequency times the customer lifespan. That's like the general equation. What you're really going to have to do, and this is where it really helped me to do this, is create a strategic customer or product path. Like, this person enters here, and then after they buy product A, I offer product B, and then I offer product C. And if you were to do product A, product B, product C, and then you look at the percentages of each of those, 20% of people who buy B bought A, bought B, 10% of people who bought B bought C, and you can run the scenarios. And actually, it takes a little bit of math to figure out, here is what, on average, the total lifetime customer mm-hmm. value is mm-hmm. of a customer when they come into mm-hmm. my world. Mm-hmm. And when that number is high, I think that is one of the, next to profit margin, obviously, that is one of the most powerful, secure, healthy numbers that we can be looking at. Mm-hmm. And when marketing gets more competitive, ad costs get higher, all these things happen, and you can focus on that, because what it does is it forces you to focus on those things. It forces you to go, I'm going to create better products that provide better experiences that keep people in my world, so they go, I want more from this person. It is one of the most beautiful things, and like, no one talks about it. But that's how you build this business. That's how you stay in this business. And when I hear these words, Jenny, Benny, come out of my mouth, and then watch people try to convince themselves that metrics don't matter, or teach that, I don't even know what emotion to experience, because it's like, it's so detrimentally harmful when knowing just a few of these metrics can be life-changing.
I said in one of the courses that we were teaching one time, like if anyone has kids or remembers what it was like to go to middle school and you think back to a time when you were playing a scrimmage game and the coaches just said, let's not keep score, and how that game felt
it's
to
not
play.
fun anymore.
It wasn't fun anymore.
No,
it was
not.
chaos.
Yeah.
Sometimes it brings out a weird sense of competition
Yeah.
where like people are arguing over what the score, and it's like there's a certain element to business where the metrics produce an order that helps you know when you're winning, but also makes it more fun because you can see progress. And I think that if you don't like numbers yet, you're probably looking at it the wrong way. And particularly in the course business, I think numbers are really fun because all of the numbers represent a transformation in another human being.
Yeah.
And I think that's unique to our market in courses because when you're talking about, selling widgets or even yoga pants, you're talking about a product selling. But when you're talking about a digital course, you're talking about impact you have with other people.
Yes.
And so all of the people who are coaches are really heart-centered. I think people who just naturally want to help. Usually that's why they get into this industry, is they have something to say, they want to help. And so when you start to learn your numbers, you can start to see the efficacy of what you're doing, what you're delivering, and how much impact it's having to help the people that are in your audience that you want to help.
That's so powerful and so freaking true. So I'm gonna go like one more place with this, and then we'll start to wrap it up because I don't want to overwhelm people. I want you to like integrate this and really like operate from here. But if you wanted to increase revenue, we need to stop focusing on revenue. We need to start focusing more on the metrics that preceded it. And the performance metric, like in a micro sales system, would be something like EPL and conversion rate. And then obviously you increase the people that come in, more registrants, more leads, more traffic, and increase the EPL, you have a exponential result. That's really awesome. Now, I won't talk about this here, but whatever system you're using for traffic or audience generation, you should have at least one metric there that you're measuring. It could be leads from Instagram. It could be new followers on Instagram. It could be podcasts. It could be downloads to your podcast, YouTube views, whatever. And that's important too, so that you have an audience or attraction-based system that attracts an audience, leads or people, and you're measuring a metric there. There's, again, super important to keep super simple. There's only two ways to get more people into your stuff: content or ads, right? So you can create a metric there. But there's another level of growth or another measurement to growth that is the last one that people ever really think of at all. And I want to leave you with this because I think this is actually the juiciest. This is like, there's something special about this. And that is the metric of time. You see, I say this over and over again. A lot of people don't really get it. And I say, struggling entrepreneurs are focused on trying to make money. But the successful digital CEO focuses on making a machine, and it's the machine that makes money, right? So I will spend my time to build a machine to get the machine up and running so that the machine can work for me. And when the machine works for me, it will continue to work for me. And the real secret is, can it continue to work for me? And so people get so caught up in these vanity metrics. And we had a wonderful episode a couple weeks ago with Natanya, and we were talking about growing for the sake of growing and not looking at over time as a metric of growth. In other words, if you make $500,000 a year and you have a 50% profit margin, again, you can take any number. You can take 100K, you can take 250, you could take 2 million. And you could sit there and say, I make 500 and I do 50%, which is like amazing, right? Oh, but I want to be at 7 figures. Oh, I want to be multi-7 figures. I want to be at 8 figures. And that's great if you do. And there's another way you get to look at it, which is what becomes possible if in 2026, I also have a $500,000 business that's 50% profit margin, and 2027, and 2028, and 2029, 20, 30, 31. You get the idea. And every year I notice that even if the business didn't grow, it's doing the same. It becomes more streamlined and efficient, easier for me to do, easier for my team, less effort, and the same amount of income. Our Airbnb business has not grown in 4 years. And I'm not sitting here thinking it needs to grow. I don't want it to grow. I'm not trying to drive growth. I just focus on maintaining it and sustaining it. And that machine sustains itself. So we continue to earn the money from that. And then when you look at it that way, it becomes a whole nother conversation, which that's why we bring Mel onto the show. And we start talking about what are you doing with that money you're making to start getting that money to make for you. And so it gets really, really fun when you start looking at your numbers, knowing what levers to pull, looking at what to measure, and creating something around that. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing that, I have to imagine you're flying blind. If you're flying blind, you're too emotionally reactive and making hasty decisions that will bite you in the butt until you learn the lessons the hard way. Mm-hmm. And that's great. You'll learn it. It's just going to be really painful. And I don't want you to learn it that way. I've gone through all that stuff. I'm here today to try to get you to learn it the easy way, not the hard way. That's kind of like what I'm trying to do. And my only reason why I wanted to grow and go from 2 to 10 was because I felt a very like a mission pull, like a call in to say I could be way bigger in helping way more people than I'm doing in much bigger ways. And I was not like, I really want it just to make more money. It was like, I'm good. However,
it was not that you really wanted to make more money.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, it was not that I wanted to make more money. It was, I want to help more mm-hmm. and in a bigger way. Mm-hmm. And then that money followed. And there'll be a time where we go, okay, we don't want to do as many events we're doing anymore. We don't want to do as many calls and all that stuff. And that will change too. Mm-hmm. And when that day comes, that day comes. But you sit here and you go, yes, I love doing this. And it's working and it's helping people. Like, let's go and let's go even bigger and help even more, right? So anyways, that's all for today, with the most important message being, know your numbers, my friends. Your numbers are your friends, and they are trying to tell you something. Mm-hmm. And they are whispering into your ear the secrets of your next decision, your next growth, your next expansion, your next quantum leap. But you must learn the language that they are speaking to you, and I hope you learn it. I also hope you join me for our free masterclass this April 22nd. Mm-hmm. I nailed it. I got the date. I got the date. That's what I have you for, babe.
Earth Day.
Earth Day, April 22nd. We are kicking off a free 3-part live training masterclass called Your First Digital Product. I'm going to walk you through every single thing you need to know to create your first product, from the niche, the angle, the promise, the content, how to map it out, create it, what to include it in it, how to price it, the deliverables, what software to use, all that stuff. So you have something for sale and get it ready to get out there into the world. And here's the craziest part. Maybe it's the best part. I don't know if it's the best part, but it's the craziest part. There's nothing for sale here. Nothing for sale. There will be no pitch. There'll be no offer. Nothing. And nothing held back. You are going to learn everything there is to create a digital product. So this is going to be uncomfortable for some people, because you're going to have no more excuses. Mm-hmm. It's all right there. And we're doing it for 3 days and it's live. And you know me, I'm bringing it. I'm bringing the heat. So get ready to receive. So whether it's your first or your 7th, I guarantee you're going to learn something. In 18 years, I've created a lot of digital products. And I'm sure you could learn a thing or two. Mm-hmm. So come join us for us. Where should they go for that link?
They're going to go to jameswedmore.com/FDP. First Digital Product, FDP.
I love it. www.jameswedmore.com/FDP, First Digital Product. Mm-hmm. I love it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Appreciate you so much. Let me know your thoughts, feedback from the episode. Can't wait to hear you learning your numbers. And we'll see you next week here on the Mind Your Business podcast.